Ma'am, thank you for joining us. Now, I want to start with general percentage points because farmers account for 4.2% of the EU's workforce and generate just 1.4% of the bloc's gross domestic product. That's quite significant percentage points. Now, my question is EU taking these farmers seriously right now?
Well, it has always been the case, actually, at the beginning of the European project. European Common Agriculture Policy was the most important policy the European community had. And I think until today, it's a very good understanding that Europe, first of all, wants to be self-sustainable as far as food is concerned. And second, we want really to keep this production going. So there's no doubt. But in the same time, you know, after 70 plus years of developing European project, we entered into a very important phase that we all want also to have a clean environment, good water and all that, a Green Deal. So that's a part of a problem because in the same time, the agriculture is not so large in the EU because the production is quite extensive. We are talking mostly in Western Europe about several countries such as Italy or France, where there is a domination of huge conglomerates, huge producers. While it's not necessarily the case in our part of Europe, however, we are all facing huge changes in the sector. Not only in this sector, but this sector suffers from having a lot of extra activities and costs. And that's the other side of the coin, that the farmers quite often say that that's a little bit too much maybe. And I think they are right in a way, because Brussels in the same time is used really to develop a lot of complicated procedures. And you know, what is good for big producers, big companies, it's not really good for small. So I think the dialogue is needed, and these protests is just a symbol of a huge frustration of the farmers, but also of some mistakes done in Brussels itself.
Mm-hmm. Interesting point you raised there, Małgorzata. We've talked about this before in the last weeks a few times. It's still a very, very much a hot issue right now. But I think, as you said there, that some of these things are just not communicated properly, that some of these farmers, actually, they don't even know that they've won, right? If we're looking at this major farm lobby, the Copa-Cogeca lobby, right? I mean, they've won a lot of concessions. A lot of the pesticides laws have been pulled back. Things have scrapped back. The cap rules are different. So is this really, let's say, are the farmers warranted still being so angry, or are they just not really hearing all the benefits that they've gotten? Because we know we have European elections very soon. So is politics tied up, especially now with our plate and food, more than usual?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. This time matters, because we just are facing elections all over the EU countries. We will all vote. And of course, the massive protests in such circumstances means something, that people, you know, could get more frustrated and more angry. And I'm pretty sure, as many experts, that this is not also the case. You know, they are not just natural protests. They are definitely fueled by many emotions and arguments given to the farmers by not necessarily, those institutions, structures, or even people who wish us well. And definitely can be Russia the case, which is always very happy where we are divided when there's something like that happening. But it does not change the fact that the problem is real. I mean, the producers in Europe face huge changes, and they are not very happy about it. And of course, we consumers, we understand, we want also these changes to happen, because we all want to have a healthier food and healthier environment. But in the short term, it means that the interests are not necessarily on the same page. You know, they are contradictory. So we need a deep dialogue. And as you rightly said, we need a very good communication, which was not necessarily the case also from the EU institution side, despite the fact that the the organizations representing farmers were engaged in the preparations of all the decisions taken vis-a-vis the farmers. However, the simple farmer, the individual, was not really updated. And I think most of the people, even in Poland, the farmers don't really feel that they are well informed what they have to do. And sometimes they also are misled. Some things they think they will have to do are not really necessary. So I think there is a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of misinformation, disinformation inside that, but it does not change the fact, I stress, that the problem is real and we need a very, very serious dialogue around it.
Now, to put it into perspective for those who are not following the topic every single day, perhaps, are you saying that it's either a clean environment, a Green Deal, as we call it, versus farmers' livelihood? Because this is how farmers are presenting the issue. Now, does it mean that European Union will need to give up environmental ambitions to make farmers happy?
No, that's completely not the case. It is like with everything else, we have to keep the right balance between the necessary changes we are all wanting because we want to get good results and the situation of every single group. Like in this case, we are discussing farmers. So for Europe, very clearly, crystal clear policy. First, we want to be self-sustainable. In the EU, all the countries have food, we have producers, we don't depend on anybody else. So, for example, the crop crisis, it doesn't affect Europe at all. We are self-sustainable. Second, we have to keep the farmers producing. We have to have producers who are able not only to produce for our own consumers, but who are also able to export. And this is also one of the important targets of the common agriculture policy. And this is also, the methods taken is also by helping farmers, by helping producers in many ways. For example, if there is a demand which is too high, and that's why the prices can go down. So the EU have mechanism to add to the prices just to keep the price level good for farmers as well, because they have to earn. Otherwise, the production will not be for them rational. And the third thing, we also have to have healthy products. So in accordance to the technologies and all the changes, we have to be sure that whatever we eat is good for the consumers. So all these three priorities are very much into the common agriculture policy, but also they are taken into consideration in discussions around the Green Deal. But in the same time, agriculture is not the only sector. And, producers in agriculture sector have to also face other challenges which are in front of us. So I think the complexity of this issue creates the problems because it's simply difficult to implement changes where the changes are needed, but the changes cause difficulties, costs, and also a lot of misunderstanding.
You're right.
Now, and I think also, going forward as well, it's I think a very, very, very critical time. We know that the informal meeting of EU agriculture ministers is taking place in Belgium right now. We have negotiators from the European Parliament and the Belgian presidency. I think it's crunch time for also this Ukraine liberalization trade deal, which potentially, if it doesn't get the go-ahead, I think with new rules, could potentially collapse. What do you think? We're still looking for details. Just briefly at the end, do you think we're going to move forward with that, or will we have no deal with the EU and Ukraine by tomorrow?
Well, we cannot continue being so open with Ukraine forever before Ukraine joins the EU. That's the first time in the EU history that the country who is not a member state just accesses fully the EU market. So I think sooner or later, once the war is over, we have to go back to the talks.
All right, and we'll see that. Of course, we'll keep everyone posted on that. Much more to discuss. Look, we'll have to conclude there. Małgorzata Bonikowska, always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.